What kind of industries are the your partners placing veterans into?
Every industry and every function. And I'm actually glad, Carrie, you brought it up because, um, one of the first good piece of advice I got when I was looking for a job out of the military was, um, you need to have an effective job search. You need to know three things: industry, function, and geography. Most people have a pretty good sense of geography. It's either I want to be here or in this region, or I'm open to going anywhere. So people get that. Industry, people kind of get it. I will say they'll confuse industries with functions sometimes, but do I want to be in healthcare? Do I want to be in tech? Do I want to be in energy? Those are industries. Function is where a lot of service members get kind of lost in the sauce because it's different. The closest thing I'd say is like, what's your civilian MOS, if you will, but it's, or AFSC or whatever, but it's, the functions in the traditional corporate functions are sales, marketing, legal, comms, sometimes operations. But then I'll hear vets like, oh, I'm a project manager. I'm like, great. So is everyone in the corporate world. Generally speaking, if you're in a contracting firm or a defense contractor, you may have jobs called project manager, but that's not really a corporate function. You're expected to have strong project management skills, whether you're a lawyer or a marketer or an engineer in a company, period. So good thing to have, but in most companies, there isn't a role called project manager.
Yeah, that's a skill. It's not a role. Excuse me. Yeah, I was with a group of vets recently and somebody was like, dude, what is up with this push that for every veteran to call themselves a project manager and for all these organizations to be pushing veterans to be project managers? It's like you're talking about like in healthcare. It's like you can work in a hospital, but there's doctors, there's nurses, there's accountants, there's operations leads,
Yeah.
there's all these different roles within a hospital and within that industry. And it is important to understand, even back at your unit, right? Like once you reached a certain rank and you weren't doing the job day to day, as much as the junior enlisted folks were, you were then managing the projects, you were managing a deployment, you were
Yep.
managing people, right? You were functioning in HR to some capacity as you're putting a deployment together to understand what you need, who you need in the unit, as it deploys or as it goes TDY or even as it's functioning at home station. So it's really important to understand the difference between a skill and a role, and maybe what the gap is, or maybe how you can scale skill to a role.
Yeah, and look, it's like that knowledge is so important because if you don't know at least two of those three things, function, industry, and geography, you're not really ready to look for a job, right? You got to invest in understanding what these things mean and what you'd be interested in and good at, right? And the more you can triangulate, the better, the more focused your job search will be and the more successful. I used to, in the early days of this job, I'd go to these job fairs and I'd see um, enthusiastic veterans, enthusiastic employers meeting up at the table, and the recruiters are great. What do you want to do? And they're like, I love your company, Caterpillar. I'll do anything. And they're like, you see the recruiter slump because that's not helpful. It's a virtue in the military to raise your hand and be a volunteer, but their job isn't to help you, figure out what you want to do. Their job is to put round pegs in round holes. And you have to say, hey, you have a hole right there and I'll fit in it so it's on you as a veteran to understand industry, function, geography. You've got to know. And I'd say for a lot of us, investing, the hardest thing is to figure out what you want to do functionally, corporate wise, because it's not a one-to-one typically compared to most military skill sets.
Yeah, I want to put a couple of these things together that we've talked about. So one being, it's not wholly on the veteran, right? I want to be clear to the audience, and I did not think you were saying this either, but just to be clear, no. We're not saying you have to do this by yourself. You have removed a serious barrier for the individual veteran to go get the help that they need so that they can understand industry, function, and geography, answer the questions that they need to answer, have the knowledge that they need to have in order to be successful putting a resume together, building a LinkedIn, gaining those interview skills, and going in, having those conversations and building those relationships. The other piece I want to tie to this is we have data that tells us veterans are more productive and more loyal in any given civilian company than their non-veteran counterpart, which is a huge thing right now in this economy as
Yep.
people are making lateral moves, working somewhere for 6 months, then jumping to another organization, ping-ponging their way through their career. Veterans are going to enter an organization, stay there, and be more productive and help the organization. So veterans should hear, like, you're not broken and you don't have to do this by yourself. This is just a barrier that's been removed to allow you to go in and operate the best way that you can and learn the new things you need to learn.
Absolutely. In fact, like I'll even, highlight that to say that, like, you should not do this by yourself, right? You shouldn't attempt to. We're not so great as veterans asking for help, but there are amazing resources that we've identified that will do this. We're talking you through the things you need to do and know, but don't worry, these organizations exist to get you there. And TAP's just not going to provide it. You are you're a unique individual with unique needs. And you need that one-on-one time. Like I said, unless you have a one-to-one, kind of adoption of a civilian job that was exactly like your military job, you will benefit from a professional helping you through this, and you should never pay for it.